Hi, I'm Pep Rosenfeld, welcoming you to this Salesforce Leading Through Change episode, this one focused on consumer goods. And consumer goods is an industry that has got lots of questions in front of it as you make your way through this disruption. Questions like how to respond to consumer needs through innovation and going directly to the consumer. How do you and upskill your workforce and stay connected with them while you provide support to your employees remotely? And of course, how to adjust to changing channel priorities. We'll be looking into these issues and more as we dive into this episode, which will feature an interview with Siddharth Baluja. He is the Global Salesforce Delivery Lead from FrieslandCampina, and he'll be sharing his insight on how they are dealing with this difficult time. So, pour yourself a glass of fresh milk as you prepare to hear their insight on how they're coping with these difficult times. While you're doing that, I'll be looking around here for a virtual cow for an even fresher glass of milk.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar series from Salesforce on leading through change. In today's webinar, we're going to specifically focus on how we can help consumer goods companies leading through change in these uncertain times. My name is Vivier Water, and I'm the EMEA Industry Lead for Consumer Goods at Salesforce. And today, I'm your host, but I'm also joined by two fantastic speakers. So we have a real trailblazer, Siddharth Baluja from FrieslandCampina, as well as Robin Bomwick, who is our Master Solution Engineer in the industry. So in terms of the agenda for today's session, we're going to cover three key areas. So first, we would like to kick off by setting the scene and really talk about what are some of these key trends and challenges that we're seeing in the consumer goods industry today. Then we'll have a conversation with Siddharth around how they are currently leading through change in these uncertain times, but also get a bit of his perspective on what the future for consumer goods holds. And then Robin will show us concretely how FrieslandCampina are leveraging our platform today. So diving into the first part and talking a little bit more about, the trends and challenges that we're currently seeing in the industry. So I think as many industries, coronavirus has obviously impacted the consumer goods industry. But what is interesting is that we've actually been experiencing some of these impacts firsthand as consumers. So think, for example, about empty shelves in the supermarkets. Think about, for example, the way that we shop more online right now. And also there's been a shift in consumer spend, really towards more essential versus non-essential goods. Of course, also what's interesting in consumer goods is that the retailers have a very high surge in demand. But then the other side of the business, which is more focused around the long tail, HoReCa, for example, is nearly completely closed or out of business right now. So managing that balance is really quite challenging for consumer goods. And what we've really seen is that in these uncertain times, there's really been a phased approach with an aligned set of priorities related to it. So if we really look at the first phase, it was really about stabilizing the business. So ensuring, for example, a supply to key customers. But of course, also very importantly, making sure that all employees are safe and set up to work from home. The next phase then is really around back to work. So really recovery, replanning phase. So thinking about leveling your business from the crisis and finding a new foundation on which to recover. So for consumer goods, the focus has been often around reskilling some employees, for example, the large field force, and how they can add value remotely, for example. And of course, also there's been a large focus on consumer engagement. So communicating with to consumers, but definitely also finding new ways to engage and even sell to consumers directly. And then the third phase is really around growing. So really preparing for leadership, but also identifying opportunities to really thrive in the new normal. So there's a lot of focus around, for example, how can we build a more resilient and agile supply chain? And on the other hand, also we see that consumer goods companies are really looking at how can they help that long tail that's currently massively impacted to get back on their feet. So in summary, the pandemic was really forcing consumer goods companies to really think about the current state, but also to start investigate how they become more agile and relevant. And of course, in order to do that, they really need to make sure that they adopt the right people, processes, but of course also really technology to start making that journey. So now let's move into the next part. Very excited to hear how consumer goods companies are responding. So Siddharth, would like to hand over to you. Thank you firstly very much for joining our webinar. Before we kick off, could you please introduce yourself and your role?
Hi, Sophie. Thanks very much for having me on this webinar. It's an absolute pleasure. So my name is Siddharth Baluja. I'm the CRM product owner for FrieslandCampina Specialized Nutrition Business Group, responsible for the entire Salesforce CRM along with the marketing automation. So just talking about FrieslandCampina as an organization. So it's a multi-billion dollar consumer goods business. So we are operating in different markets globally, specializing in products from the consumer products, for example, like baby milk, formulas, cheeses, yogurt, etc. And it's been quite difficult times recently, but we'll talk about that a bit more further.
So can you start by telling us a little bit of how FrieslandCampina are currently navigating the pandemic? For example, what has your journey been like? And how has the organization coped with it?
Let me start with by saying last few months have been a hell of a ride. And I'm sure not only for FrieslandCampina, but a lot of other organizations out there operating within the same sector. But on top of that, so there has been a total disruption to the business, to our regular business. But the biggest concern has always been the safety of our employees. Now, as we all know, it all started in China. However, I have to say that how the team actually dealt with the situation has been very, very impressive. Led to a lot of learnings on, firstly, how we safeguard our employees, the effect on our business. And of course, what has that led into is a much more acceleration into digital transformation as a result of that. I would like to thank our crisis team who worked continuously, who were monitoring the situation, being in direct contact with our employees and also with our local teams and the local government, safeguarding, of course, the safety of our employees and translating learnings and guidelining them into a safe way in order to enable them to work from home. Coming to that, in a sense, the impact has been very different from country to country, as goes with any other organization, depending on whether we had a partial lockdown or we had a full lockdown. However, I would like to quote something, as my colleague said, cows would keep on giving milk and people would need to continue to eat. So that brings us to the next point, is that, however, it will continue to churn in the sense like people still need food, people still need milk. And since the cows would continue to provide milk, in the sense is that, however, as a business, what we have to do is we have to look into the new ways of working. And I think that's where the digital transformation plays a very important role. So, in a nutshell, I would say this has given us or created a situation where we are shifting the gears now, and we are working from home. We are trying to keep the businesses running, but also, most importantly, we have to see how now what the shoppers are looking for. So what the shopper behavior has been changed. And I think that's the most critical part. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's really interesting. Maybe more specifically, how are you seeing that FrieslandCampina are currently engaging differently, both internally with their employees, but also with their consumers versus before the pandemic?
Whether the situation has been sort of forced by the government or it's by choice, we all have to agree the shopper behavior has changed. So we need to find new ways to connect. And when we say new ways to connect, we are looking at how can we connect digitally. So how far can we go? What channels can we engage with our consumers on? For example, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, or any other social channels. So this has really transformed the way we actually engage, we interact with our consumers. And these are the channels people sitting at home on their laptops or on their tablets or on their smartphones, they're constantly consuming that media. They're constantly engaging through those channels. And I think this has definitely played a very vital part in the sense like how we will engage with our consumers going forward, because the mothers, the moms, the parents, the families, they still need that information. They still need to engage with the brands. They still need to buy our product. But it has become even more vital now. How do we actually engage with them constantly in this challenging environment? Coming to our employees, so of course, safety goes first for our employees during these pandemic times. But I would kind of focus a bit more on the 3 stages, which is how do we keep communicating to our employees internally? How do we keep on providing them update, especially on the current situation? And how do we connect with them through our digital channels? So we are using currently a lot of digital channels internally to connect with our employees. For example, we are using different platforms. Salesforce has played a very, very vital part as part of FrieslandCampina, especially allowing our employees and people to work from home remotely and still be able to deliver. Whether it's engaging with a consumer or whether it's talking to your colleague using, for example, Chatter. So it has been an exceptional tool within the organization to keep our business running.
Maybe a bit more specifically around your direct-to-consumer business, because I know that traditionally consumer goods companies, of course, they sell much more to their B2B channels, but the focus of our conversation today is more around D2C. So can you tell us a little bit more about your online sales? Has it grown, for example? Are you facing any specific challenges? Interested to hear more.
Sure. So in a sense, like we are definitely looking at different channels. How do we engage with our consumers at the right time? So we are focusing on how do we reach out to our consumers directly, whether that's just to engage with them, just to see how they are doing. Is there anything we, the brand or the business, can help them with? Maybe find a product or get some nutritional information about a specific product, or any sort of other question they may have. So we are continuously really focusing on how do we keep on engaging with our consumers. And again, from that perspective, Salesforce is playing a very important part as part of that journey with us, because the tool is enabling us to constantly engage with our consumers. So even whether it's a matter of just checking like if there's anything we can do to them or help them out with, or provide some information or guide them to our website or guide them to the right information. So absolutely. So our main focus right now, it's more on how do we still keep on engaging with our consumers.
But as you mentioned already, you've been using Salesforce even before the crisis. So can you tell us a little bit more about the journey that FrieslandCampina has taken with Salesforce and how the partnership has been for you so far?
So we've started our journey with Salesforce, if I recall correctly, about 3.5 to 4 years ago. It's been an exceptional journey. We've rolled out Salesforce to many of our markets within the organization, different parts of the world. And Salesforce has been very, very helpful. The team has been exceptional. They've provided us a lot of guidance with the right features that will be available in the right market, targeting how we can target the consumers, understand the consumer behavior. But not only that, how do we start adding value to the business, which is very important for us, because from my perspective, just adding a new platform and adopting to that platform is a very different thing. They're completely two different beasts. However, it has become quite clear to me from my experience for many years working with Salesforce. So I could say, in a sense, I live and breathe Salesforce, which I'm sure my partner won't like to hear. But for me, it's absolutely clear in a sense that how important this platform is. The functionality it provides, but not only that, the support it has provided us, especially with our journey at FrieslandCampina, has been exceptional. And I look forward to continue working with them.
So great to hear, and what I would call a true trailblazer. So can you shed some more light on specifically how you're using Salesforce for your Frieso brand, which is one of your key brands for infant nutrition?
Within FrieslandCampina, we operate, of course, through multiple brands in different markets, and Frieso being one of our premium brands. So it was quite important for us to really establish a consumer journey in the sense like how do we engage with the pregnant moms, or how do we engage with the moms who already have children of certain ages, and how do we take them through that journey. And we worked very closely with Salesforce in defining that journey, what would be the first point of interaction, how do we continuously engage with them, and how do we nurture that relationship going forward. So it has always been a very vital part to us as a business and to us as a brand. And taking that into account, so we've of course used multiple modules from Salesforce, for example, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud in terms of responding to the consumer inquiries, etc. We are also looking at building some communities where the mothers can talk to each other, get the information they need, or whether it's to even talk to other moms, like, how their experience has been through the pregnancy. And I think the platform has really provided us that capability to enable those features, or to bring the consumers together. Not only that, but to bring the brand and the consumers together. So it has been a very, very interesting journey for us, but still a lot of work to do. I'm sure, like a lot of other organizations, but that's what we are here for. And as we say, onwards and upwards.
Okay, so finally, I would like to look a bit forward. So a couple of questions on your view of the industry and what the future holds. So from all the things that we discussed in terms of, employee engagement, the way that you interact with consumers, what are some of the things that you think will stick?
It's a very good question, Sophie. And I believe the way of working, especially, for example, people working from home or employees working from home, that will definitely stick going forward, because now the organizations have seen, because of the infrastructure we have available, the capabilities we have available, the platforms we have available, that enables us to actually work from home, still being productive and being able to deliver on our deliverables. I think that is another way, that is one of the ways, that will stick. But however, most importantly, what I believe is the shopper's behavior is going to stick going forward, because whether we look at, for example, a consumer goods industry, whether we look at retail, whether we look at pharma, etc., it's very important, because now for past many weeks, especially if we look at Britain or if we look within Europe, people have been stuck at home for many, many weeks or even like few months now. And what has that kind of resulted in is actually people not being able to step out, not being able to go to a store, or not being able to go to a shop to buy a product or to get certain service. But going forward, what this will enable us to do is kind of imprint this in our behavior, that I'm actually happy to stay at home and use a mobile device to, let's say, for example, talk to a virtual assistant because I want to buy a product, or whether I want to request a delivery of groceries to my door, or even, for example, there are organizations who are providing a lot of personalized service, delivering coffees these times to people's home. And I think this is where I believe this is going to stick going forward, is the shopper's behavior, because that has changed. The business models have completely shifted overnight because of this COVID situation. And I think digital transformation has never been more important. And in order to accommodate that shopper's behavior, the consumer behavior, I think we as organizations have to really look at how we now engage with those shoppers going forward. And I think that is the main crux of it from my perspective.
Couldn't agree more. So then, last question: what would you recommend to other consumer goods companies who are currently preparing for the new normal?
I was watching a very good a story of a very small business in US, and something kind of stuck with me from that. And they were really focusing on communicate. And I think that is very, very important, especially these days, talking to our consumers, making sure how they feel about the brand. Is there anything we as business can actually help them, especially during these times? But it's not just about, of course, selling a product, but it's also about how we engage with them, right? And on back of that, the advice I would probably give at this stage is digital transformation is never going to be more important. It's extremely important right now. And how, as I was mentioning earlier in my last comments, like how the business have shifted overnight. And I think this is absolutely the core and the right time to focus on the digital transformation. And a platform like Salesforce can provide all the ammunition we need in order to accelerate this journey. And I'm quite pleased with that. We embarked on this journey a few years ago because it has enabled us as a brand to continue engaging with our consumers during these difficult times. So yes, my advice would be to really focus on the digital transformation going forward and ensure we are always communicating with our consumers.
All right, Siddharth, that was very inspiring. Thank you again for joining us and sharing your experience. It's really much appreciated.
My pleasure.
So now I would like to hand over to Robin, who's going to show us more concretely how FrieslandCampina are leveraging Salesforce for their Friso brand.
Thank you, Sophie. Just a brief introduction to myself. I'm Robin Bomick. I'm a Master Solution Engineer over at Salesforce Netherlands. I'm focused on the consumer goods industry. And also specifically, I work very closely with Siddharth and his team over at FrieslandCampina, specifically around this program here, Friso. To give you some context into the background around what we're going to be looking at very shortly in the demonstration, it really focuses around what Siddharth has been talking about, in this case, new ways to connect. At the center, we have a persona represented here as the Nutri advisor, who has a relationship with mothers who have newborn babies. And the challenge that they have in the current COVID crisis is that not everyone can get out, but also with a newborn child, you're very much reliant on having a relationship with people from a distance and support from a family, a network, and even a network of other mothers around you. So what we've done with Salesforce, we've created a vision here that helps the business really understand and articulate what the value of the Salesforce platform can actually bring to them around their business model. At the center, we have our stakeholders, so in this case, the Nutri advisor and the mother, and also people working over in the service center that can help those mothers. And we have a complete 360-degree view of that particular mother and all the services centered around that. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over now to my live demo system, and you'll see exactly what that theme and story looks like. So I just want to give you a quick demo of an end-to-end Friso journey for a mother and baby. Rachel is a member of the Friso community and gets help from nutrition advisors and others that help her while she's at home with her baby. In the background, Marketing Cloud's orchestrating all kinds of interactions and engagements as she interacts with the Friso brand, sending different calls to action. One of the actions is to download the Friso app, which allows her to set up her profile and configure repeat orders as well as take advantage of special offers. On submitting her order, there's a problem completing it, but it's not really a problem because with Friso, she can reach out for help on her channel of choice, whether it's Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, web chat, phone, and so on. Over in the Friso Service Center, on the right-hand side of the screen, the agent has a quick view of previous interactions as well as a deeper view of Rachel's consumer profile, such as recommended products, visibility into her community activity, and information about her order history, including the current order. Because we connect everything together with all our stakeholders, the agent can reach out to operations to complete the order to then start delivery to Rachel. Marketing Cloud then sends a survey out to Rachel as well as a discount voucher for the inconvenience. So that's a quick glimpse into how Salesforce can help Friso digitize their experience with consumers at home looking after their babies.
Thank you, Robin. A really relevant example of how we can help consumer goods companies to interact and drive engagement with their end consumers, which, as we've learned today, is more important than ever in these uncertain times.